Okay, so we're into the last two sections of the algebra module, but this time we're going to use the distributive law in reverse, where we're going to, instead of expanding, we're going to factorise, and that involves taking out the factor that's common and putting it outside the brackets. So there's a bit of a procedure that people find helpful. We're going to do a few examples here to help us. So here we have an example here, 2x plus 4. What we're going to try to do is find a factor that's common to both. In this case it's 2. So once we find that, we write the 2 outside the brackets, and then we say to ourselves, how many times does 2 go into 2x? It goes x times. And how many times does 2 go into 4? It goes 4 times. And that's what goes inside the brackets. A few more examples here. So here 5 would be the factor that's common. So you take the 5 out. How many times does 5 go into 30? 6 times. How many times does 5 go into 5x? It goes x times. So look at the next one here. We've got x plus zx plus 3xy. So it's the x that's common. So you can take that out and write down what's left. So x goes into x1, that's where the 1 comes from. So when you expand it, you need to get the same thing again. That's a check you can do. Okay, something a little bit harder here. Sometimes you need to simplify as much as you can before factorising. So that means you should combine like terms if there are any like terms there. So here we have an example here. We have some like terms here. So combining the like terms, we'll have the 2x minus 8xb plus 3xyz. Now the x is common, so we can take that out. That's a common factor. And essentially write down what's left. So here's a few activities here. Once again, that second one, you can combine like terms before factorising. Okay, sometimes, as all things, they get a bit more difficult. So what we can do is take out a common bracketed factor. So in each case here, the a plus 5 is common. So that's a common bracketed factor. So we can take that right out and write down what's left. Okay, it's the 4 and then negative c. So I've factorised that. Using a highlighter pen does help a bit with these. But let's go through a process just to help us along with this a bit. So we've got a question where we look at all terms and there's no common like terms, so we can't do that. So what we do next is say, look at the first two terms and see whether there's anything common there in the first two terms. And if we look at the first two terms, we find that a b is common. In fact, factorise it out. We look at the next two, and the 2 is common. So we have this paired bracketed common factor again, like we did in the previous example, where we can factorise the bracket. So when you're doing these questions, this is what you're aiming for. And the ones we give you, you'll find that they do work out. So forming the second bracket. So here's another example. I've just looked at the first two, and when I look at the first two, look, I can take out a 4. And if I look at the next two, I can take out a b, I can do that same thing again. There's a common bracketed factor. I can take that out. Put it in. So here's an activity for you to do. Okay, one more example. What we can do here, when I look at the top line, is to factorise the top line. I can take out a b. So it's just a harder version of what we've seen in the earlier exercises here. Once I do that, I can cancel the x minus 4 with the x minus 4 there, because they are common to both top and bottom. So the answer here is B. It's a whole exercise of those to practice in the book. Here's an activity for you to do. Remember to factorise top and bottom.